Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Halloween special, the 5th annual Halloween special of the Motion Picture Notion. I went to see Terrifier 3 last night. Yeah, let's talk about it. I'm really happy that I do these reactions right after the movie, like apart from my review, because my initial thoughts on the film aren't always like fully realized until the drive home. And I went to see this at 10:10 last night, so I was freaking exhausted. I just went to bed. It's super early in the morning before I have to go to work, and that's when I'm doing this review. I've slept on it, okay? So this is about as like in-depth a review as you're gonna get from me. Okay, so Terrifier 3. Damien Leone, I give the man a lot of credit, okay? Because he actually went with, I believe, a different production company this time around because they were telling him to kind of tone it down for, theatrical release. And he's like, no, go to hell. Respect, absolute respect for the man, okay? And it's very creative. It does expand on the lore while still leaving it very much open-ended for another film. We get a lot more into what Art the Clown might actually be. I mean, we've always had kind of an idea, but there might be a little bit more to it. The little girl is not in this film, the little girl from Terrifier 2, but they spend a lot more time with his first victim with the messed up face. I forget her name. So in every Terrifier movie, there's one scene that goes like a little bit too far, okay? And that's part of the thing of watching it. It's like, the shock value. It's like, you're like, okay, when's the thing gonna happen? I know it's coming. When's it coming? This film, I mean, in the first Terrifier, you had the bandsaw scene. In the second Terrifier, you had the bedroom scene. This one, while you don't have a scene that's as, like, prolonged as the bedroom scene, you have several scenes that are that disturbing, but are a lot shorter in length, just sort of peppered throughout the movie. And I don't know if it's just because I'm getting older. I don't know if it's the Night of Columbus in me. I mean, the gorehound in me is beyond satisfied. And if you are a gorehound, this movie delivers, okay? But there were several points in the film that I found myself asking, how much is too much? There were a couple points where I was like, I don't find this entertaining. I mean, it's a meh with me, okay? Let's put it this way. Of the three films, this one is probably my least favorite for that reason. There were a few parts in the movie where I'm like, I am not entertained by this. The ending is still awesome. Art the Clown is great, okay? David Howard Thornton, he does, whenever he steps into the role, he's absolutely brilliant. There are some genuinely funny scenes in this movie, and there are some genuinely disturbing scenes in this. And it's, for the most part, pretty well balanced, but there is so much gore. So much gore. It pushes so freaking far. This film was released to theaters unrated. If it had been given a rating, there is not a shadow of a doubt in my mind that it would have been an NC-17. This is an absolute bloodbath of a movie. And the thing about it is, because I've seen like a lot of the Saw films, and I would say this film goes farther than a lot of the Saw films, but I've seen like that kind of really intense, really extreme sort of torture porny kind of stuff before, but there was always sort of like a reason behind it. I mean, don't get me wrong, the punishment usually didn't match the crime. It was usually very much disproportionate, but the person had done something. There was some way in which they were taking their life for granted, okay? There's one death in the last Saw movie. I'm not going to get into specifics if you haven't seen it, okay? But that genuinely disturbed me because a character who truthfully did nothing wrong got brutally murdered, okay? And I mean, sometimes that can work to, push the urgency of a story or to, again, like one moment of shock value, like the bedroom scene, okay? But the thing is, and I mean, this is kind of to Damien Leone's credit, all right? The characters in this film were very much likable. I mean, you have Sienna, there's some characters that we're familiar with, but all the new characters that are introduced are actually really nice. They're good people, and you really sort of, actually give a shit, like what happens to them. So to watch somebody who not only does nothing wrong, but actually does everything to try and help, and just be a good, decent human being, get like brutally brutally, torturously murdered. Again, I was sitting there in the theater and I'm like, I'm just not, I don't find this entertaining, you know. Overall, I did find the movie entertaining, but I think that this is about the line for me. Like, you know, maybe it's also because it takes place during Christmas, and as I've gotten older, I'm a big softy for Christmas, you know, and there's a lot of horror fans out there who probably hear me say and be like, oh, well, you're a pussy. Okay, well, yeah, hey, you know what, man? I mean, then I'm a pussy, you know? It's just, it goes really far in a lot of scenes. There are some people who are subjected to some really awful shit who do not deserve it. Not to say that the chick from the bedroom scene in Terrifier 2 deserved it, but her character wasn't as, like, well fleshed out, I guess you could say, as these characters. You know, she was just sort of like the generic friend character. You know, not, I mean, it was still awful, but again, it was also one scene. It was kind of like a roller coaster. It's like, when's the scene coming, you know? But when you have the scene here and here and here and here, and it's just going on and on and on throughout the movie, you're like, oof, God, this is like nauseating. I've heard that there are people who went to this screening in like England or something like that who literally walked out in the first 10 minutes. I heard that there are people who've thrown up. I've heard that they were providing barf bags for people. When I heard that, I was like, well, that's a great, you know, that's a great marketing ploy, you know, but I'm a seasoned horror guy and shit like that. Like, it's clearly just to, you know, entice people to come in. And while I'm sure that that is the case, I would believe it. I would absolutely believe it. This movie goes really far. And while I am happy that Damien Leone left it open-ended for another film, okay, I would like to see Art the Clown's terror reign continue, but it's pretty clear from this film that he's going to push it further and further every time. My suggestion, and I mean, you know, again, there's probably a lot of horror fans out there who'll be like, shut up, you don't know what you're talking about. Fine. My suggestion would be Terrifier 4, have one really disgusting scene like you did in the first two, and kind of tone it down a little bit, you know? And I mean, Damien Leone made no secret of the fact that Terrifier 2 was sort of like his Dream Warriors, you know? It had a more polished look to it, and it was bigger, and it was like, I was definitely more entertaining, I would say, than the first one. I think that Terrifier 2 is my favorite, but he wanted to avoid making that same mistake of going forward with films and making them more like lighthearted and goofy. He didn't want to go the route of Freddy Krueger, essentially, which is another reason why I respect him. He pulled it back for this. He returned to that grainy look of the first film. It has a trashy 1980s vibe, you know. It kind of shits on Christmas, which does bother me a little bit, you know, and I know there's some people who are like, what, you don't like Silent Night, Deadly Night? It's like, yes, I do, but that's a movie about a freaking slasher. This movie is about, like, a demon clown that murders people in the most horrific ways imaginable. So, you know, again, it's like, I would say it's about the line. It's about, like, as far as I feel, and again, I'm getting older, you know, this might not count for everybody. I feel that it's about as far as a movie can push things before it just becomes too much. Like, it's really on that line. It's probably my least favorite of the three Terrifier movies. Again, I do respect its creative direction. I do respect the fact that each of these films brings something a little new. Each of these films brings, like, a different sort of vibe and a different look. I appreciate it. And for the third chapter in a franchise, I'd say it's going strong. You know, it's definitely better than, like, Saw 3, you know, in my opinion. But it's just, it is a gory freaking movie. Gorehounds, you will absolutely love it, but this movie definitely pushes it. So, I mean, take that for how you will. Like I said, going forward, I kind of hope that Damien Leone sort of pulls back just a teensy-weensy bit, or again goes back to that formula of the first and second film where there is one very disgusting scene and the rest of the movie is just like kind of, you know, hatchet-like violence. You know, but I kind of feel like that's not going to happen. So we'll see what lies ahead. But Terrifier 3, it's a doozy, guys. And yeah. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Leave a like if you liked this. If not, thank you for watching anyway. And that's all she wrote.